Whew. How are you feeling about this heat wave? Oh, I'm not talking about the oven that has descended over the Midwest and Northeast for this entire week. Instead, I'm referring to the heat on Matt Gaetz, member of Congress who is now once again under investigation, this time by the Republican-led bipartisan House Ethics Committee. What are they accusing him of? Well, yesterday, they announced that he is under investigation for both sexual misconduct, drug use, and obstruction of justice. To be clear, what they are saying in their statement is that Matt Gaetz accepted improper gifts and also dispensed some privileges and favors to someone he was having a personal relationship with. Now, of course, he's trying to brush this off, and the way he does it is quite curious in saying, oh, I have fought these before. They have dismissed 4 different investigations against me. Not the best defense, I would say. Also, what they are saying is that there are many things that they are not going to continue to investigate, which included showing improper photographs on the floor of the House, as well as some shenanigans that he was involved in involving helping someone make fake IDs in Florida. Great, Matt. Good luck with that. And let's remember, where there is heat, there is light. I read this fantastic piece in Slate written by Smith College professor Carrie Baker about the benefit of all the negative attention and demonization of the abortion drug mifepristone. This pill is something that has been in the news, both being attacked in states like Louisiana and up at the U.S. Supreme Court with the failed attempt by the group of doctors to ban it from its approval by the FDA. Now, I know we talked about how this was a temporary reprieve, and that is true because the doctors who brought the case lost on standing. But nevertheless, what all of this light has brought is as follows. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who had never, ever known until this negative attention that there was a simple pill that they could take, that a woman who was pregnant in her earliest weeks could take to end the pregnancy in the privacy and safety of her home. So keep that in mind. It's a little bit of what we sometimes call the Barbra Streisand effect. I'm sure you've heard of that. Yes, the Streisand effect refers to a real phenomenon named after the diva. It dates back to around 20 years ago in 2003, when Streisand was trying to stop from being published a photograph of her gorgeous cliffside home in Malibu, California. At the end of the day, the efforts to block information or block images from publication sometimes has the unintended consequence of drawing more scrutiny, drawing more attention. And that is why it is called the Streisand effect. Now, speaking of Barbra Streisand, I have to mention this. A couple weeks ago, my dear friend E. Jean Carroll was out in California and somehow happened upon, perhaps at some private gathering, Barbra Streisand. You've got to check out this photo of these incredible women together. Speaking of trying to shut someone up, just yesterday we heard news out of the New York Court of Appeals, that's the highest ranking court in the state of New York, rejecting Donald Trump's attempt to lift the gag order that is still in place in connection with his criminal trial, for which, as you remember, he was convicted on 34 felony counts. Now, we call this, remember, the hush money payment case, but this is a felony business records falsification case with the intent to cover up or further another crime, namely, in this case, election interference under New York law. So what does it mean that the gag order is in place? Well, the prosecution wanted to keep it in place, at least through the appeals process, post-conviction, and this means that Donald Trump is forbidden from disparaging the prosecution team, any of the witnesses, the jury members, anyone in the court system and their families. The exception to this is the judge himself and Alvin Bragg, the district attorney. And my last story before Crazy Town involves yet another undercover video being released by Lauren Windsor's team. Remember, she was the person who released those blockbuster undercover videos of conversations that she had with both Justice Roberts and Justice Alito.
Bye, baby. Bye, cat. Meow, 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 meow. Meow, meow. She's a bad girl.
Yesterday, we heard two snippets of undercover conversations that both Lauren Windsor and her colleague, L.A. Samarco, who is also a nerd Avenger right here on Mary Trump Media. Both of them had conversations with Roger Stone at a prayer breakfast at Mar-a-Lago back in March. And I want you to take a listen to this because you can see how concerned we should be that folks on the Trump train in the MAGA world are already planning to use the existing levers of power to try to interfere in the upcoming election. Let's take a listen.
Position to know more than anybody else. How are you feeling about the election?
Too early to say.
Biden can't win again.
No, but it can be stolen again.
We're in a whole. Wait, there's got to be something we can do to prevent that.
We're working on this, but I'm not saying that I'm totally confident yet because I'm not. By the way, in 2020, only 65% of evangelical Christians bothered to vote. So when you tell people, "Oh, we're doing great," then this happens. I don't have to worry about voting. That's our biggest. Overconfidence is one of our giant problems right now among our own people.
But so, what are we going to do to stop it now? Thank you.
I'll tell you the same thing I told her. We're working on it.
Well,
lawyers, judges, technology.
Governors?
Some, but there aren't many with any guns.
We got to use every lever we can.
We are doing that. All right.
You're doing the Lord's work.
Thank you.
I genuinely think you're pleasure to meet you.
Such an important election year, and what are we going to do? Donald Trump is elected. We know it's a Democrat school.
Yes, but between now and then, we're going to work very hard and very smart to try to make sure that doesn't happen. And so far, given the incredible power they have and they will use ruthlessly, we're beating them as of today. So in the end, I would beat the president's trial in Georgia's falling apart. I think the judges are on the verge of dismissing the charges against him in Florida. They're delayed in New York City, and they're now delayed in Washington. So it's not clear that they can have a trial before the election, which is the absolute key to being able to convince people that the reason we lost was because of the trial. Right now, if they steal it, people say, well, that's not possible. Trump is leading in all the polls. They want to try him, suck up his money, suck up his time, and create the reason why their theft is plausible, believable. You see?
Yeah, what stops them from just like voter fraud? Like
They in some states it'll be easier to stop them, in other places but at least this time, when they do it, you have a lawyer and a judge whose home phone number standing by so you can stop him. We made no preparations last time. None.
Well, I was at the Capitol, so I'm prepared to go back.
Well, that may not be necessary. There are technical and legal steps that we have to take to try to have a more honest election. We're not there yet, but there are things that can be done. It's a long conversation. I'm working with changes in state law, real-time voter list monitoring, going to court as we just did to challenge some of the voter lists. The election's not tomorrow. We went into court to sue in Michigan over the handling of ballots, which we sued in half a dozen places. And they really profoundly now on an offensive footing. Remember, the Republican National Committee raised $200 million and they didn't spend any of it to try to get cleaner elections or look at what happened last time. We now finally have control of that mechanism. Don't be discouraged.
So they're going to spend, the RNC is going to spend more money now than ours.
Far more.
And that brings us to Crazy Town. crazy town today is Racine, Wisconsin, because that's where yesterday Donald Trump was at a campaign event trying to convince Wisconsinites that despite everything he said, trash talking Milwaukee, that he actually loves Milwaukee. Now, this is crazy because what we have also heard in the news just yesterday is that during the Republican convention in mid-July, Donald Trump plans to stay in Chicago, Illinois, and commute to Milwaukee. So that is not showing a lot of love for the city he claims now to fully support. And I also want to remind you that the Republican National Convention begins on Monday, July 15th, just a few days after convicted criminal Donald Trump is sentenced in New York City. So it's going to be quite interesting to see just how proud he is to be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, with a criminal sentence and, of course, the shame of it all.